Hello students, once again I welcome you all in my new video for class 10th, and this is the second part of the transportation in human because while making the video it was taking too much time, so I divided it into different parts so it would be easy for you to get the topics easily from different videos. So in the previous video we have completed what are the components of human circulatory system. That means the blood vessels and heart. These are the three components which are going to form our circulatory system. Now in this video today we are going to see the last component of our circulatory system, that is what? Heart. And we will see the anatomy and physiology of human heart. So about heart, you all are having your basic knowledge that heart is what? It is a muscular organ which can contract and relax, and due to its contraction it is going to pump throughout the whole body so that the tissues and cells, all of the tissues and cells in our body, they can absorb nutrients and they can release metabolic waste inside the blood, and thus the process of transportation can be conducted easily. So this muscular organ, this heart, you all are having your previous knowledge that it is situated just right behind the front bone of our rib cage, that is sternum, and in between both of the lungs. So the situation of heart is what? At the center of our thoracic region and in between the lungs, but the lower part of the heart is slightly shifted towards the left side, so it feels that we are having our heart towards the left side, but actually it is situated just behind the sternum. It is situated just behind the bone, that is sternum. When we talk about the anatomy of heart, then you are having your previous knowledge that heart consists of four chambers. As you are having a knowledge that birds and mammals, we all are having four-chambered heart so that the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood cannot mix together, and we can perform our functions very easily, and each part of the body can get oxygenated blood. So the four chambers, out of these four chambers, two chambers are situated upside, means upper chamber, and two chambers are situated downside, means two are lower chambers. So the upper chambers are known as what? Auricles or atrium, and the lower two chambers are known as what? Ventricles. So this all, I guess that many of you are still remembering from the previous classes that heart is having four chambers, two auricles and two ventricles. Auricles are the chambers which are going to accept the blood inside the heart, and ventricles are the lower chambers which are going to donate the blood through the various parts of the body, means they are sending the blood out from the heart. And heart is situated just behind the sternum, but the lower part of the heart, means ventricle, is slightly shifted towards the left side, so it feels that we are having our heart left side. And you know that function of the heart is what? To pump the blood so that the blood can flow throughout the all tissues and cells in our body, and they can absorb and release their nutrients as well as waste materials into the blood. So now we will see the structure of human heart. But before we start labeling all of its parts, let me tell you the sides of the human heart, which students always commit mistake while labeling it. So let me tell you, it is not possible for us to see our own heart directly from the front side. Whenever we are going to make the figure of human heart, it means what? We are observing the mirror image of our heart. And you know, if this is my right hand side, then in the mirror image it will be what? Left side. And if this is the left side, left hand, then in the mirror image this will be what? Right side. So this will be the left side of human heart, and this will be what? Right side of the human heart, while making the diagrams on page or anywhere else. And you can get one more basic idea that which one is the left side. As you all know that the lower bottom part of the heart is slightly shift towards the left side. So in which direction this lower part is going to bend, that is what? Left side, and the other side is what? Right side. So we will see what are the parts here one by one. So you know, when we talk about the human heart is made up of 4 chambers. But when we talk about fishes contains only 2 chambers, one atrium and one ventricle. And when we talk about the amphibians and reptiles, because you know from your previous knowledge that the evolution from fishes, amphibians are evolved, then from amphibians, reptiles, and from reptiles, birds and mammals, and we belong to this category. So fishes contain only 2 chambers heart, amphibians and reptiles both of them contains 3 chambered heart, and these birds and mammals contain 4 chambered heart. So in these 2 category of organisms, means amphibians and reptiles, 2 atriums are present and only 1 ventricle is there. So it is not possible in these organisms to separate oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. But here, as we are having 4 chamber heart, and I made it like this part, left side you are observing it is of red color, and this side it is of right color. It means what? The right side of the heart is having what? Deoxygenated blood, and the left side of the heart is having what? Oxygenated blood. So both of the blood will not mix together, and this is the advantage of having 4 chambered heart. So you know what are the chambers in our human heart? The upper 2 chambers are what? Atrium or auricle, and the lower 2 chambers are what? Ventricle. So we will see one by one what are these chambers. So this is the first chamber, this is second, third and fourth. So what are the chambers? The first chamber is what? This is side, left side. So left, and the upper chamber is what? Atrium. So first one is what? First chamber is left atrium. Second one is what? Side left. And the lower bottom chamber is known as what? Ventricle. Third one is what? Side right. And the upper chamber, so it will be termed as atrium. And the last one is what? Right ventricle. So don't be confused. Left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium, right ventricle. These are the 4 chambers. And maybe few of you can question that why not we started numbering from this side? Why we are going to start the numbering of the human heart chambers from this side? So let me tell you, this chamber is going to accept or absorb or receive oxygenated blood. So we will start our counting from this side. So the oxygenated blood enters in the first chamber, that is what? Left atrium. From the left atrium, the blood is poured out into the next chamber, that is what? Second one, left ventricle. From this ventricle, the blood, this oxygenated blood is going to the other body parts, and from body parts again the blood is coming to this chamber, upper chamber, that is what? Right atrium, and finally it reaches into the last chamber from where it is sent to the lungs for the purification, means for the oxygenation of blood. So we started our numbering from this side. So what are the functions of these chambers? Out of these 4 chambers, you are observing the 1 and 3 chamber. 1 and 3 are the upper chambers, and always remember that upper chambers are going to what? Take blood, means the upper 2 chambers are performing the function of receiving blood from the other parts of the body, whether from the lungs or from the other body organs. And the first one is what? Means the left atrium. First, the left atrium takes blood from lungs, and the third chamber means what? Right atrium takes blood from body parts. It means what? Atrium performs the function to receive the blood, and now after receiving the blood, they are also performing the function to send the blood into the lower chambers. Now we will see what are the second and fourth chambers, means what are the functions of lower 2 chambers. So 2 lower chambers are what? Right and left ventricles, and their function is what? The second one, left ventricle. The left ventricle performs the function of sending, it sends oxygenated blood to other body organs. And this, the bottom one, the fourth one, that is what? Right ventricle. It is going to send the deoxygenated blood to lungs. So ventricles are performing the function to send the blood out from the heart, and atriums are performing the function to receive the blood and send to the ventricle. So I hope now the chambers are clear to you. 4 chambers: left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium and right ventricle, and we will see what are their main and specific characteristics. So maybe you are observing in the figure that the left ventricle is having very thick muscular wall. From here figure you are observing that this chamber, this left ventricle, is having thicker wall than this right ventricle. So why this is happening? You can see atrium and ventricles. So atriums are having what? Thin walls, whereas ventricles are having what? Thick walls. What is the reason behind this? Because you know, atriums have to send the blood only to the lower chambers. So they need small pressure so that the blood can enter inside the lower chambers. But this ventricle and this, both the ventricles are going to send the blood out from the heart. So they require extra pressure, and that's why ventricles have thicker walls than atrium. But when we are observing in the ventricles, you know, the right ventricle is having thin wall in comparison to the left ventricle. Why it is happening so that the left ventricle is having much thicker wall than the right ventricle? Because this ventricle is sending the blood to whole parts of the body, even to the upside and downside up to the toes. So it needs a lot of pressure, a lot of force, and to push or pump the blood with enormous pressure, it is having extra thick muscular wall, and this ventricle, the right ventricle, is going to send the blood only to the lungs. So it needs less pressure in comparison to the right ventricle. So this was all about the chambers. 4 chambers. Ventricles are having thicker wall, whereas atriums are having thinner wall, and ventricles are going to send the blood away from the heart, and atrium are going to receive the blood from the other body organs. Now we will see what are these black structures, means what are the function of their valves. So now we will see what are the valves that are present inside the heart. So if this is the first chamber, then it will be the first valve. So we will provide this after 4. This one will be what? Number 5, 6. This will be third chamber, it means valve. This valve will be number 7, and finally this will be what? 8. Now we will see what are the valves that are present in the heart. Actually, valves are nothing, they are just the folding of endocardium. Endocardium means what? Cardium means the muscles present in the heart, and endo means the internal layer. So these are what? Only the foldings of endocardium, so that the blood can flow only in one direction. The function of valves are only this, that the blood cannot backflow, they are going to flow only in one direction. So what are these valves? Number 5, if this is the chamber atrium and this chamber is what? Ventricle. So in between the atrium and ventricle, this is known as what? Atrioventricular valve, or it is also known as mitral valve, or it is also called as bicuspid valve. So the valve present in between the left atrium and left ventricle, this valve is known as what? Bicuspid valve. Actually, bicuspid means what? Bi means 2 and cusp means plate-like structures which are going to open only towards the downside. You are observing here, these valves are going to open towards the downside. When the pressure will be more in the upper chamber, means the atrium, these valves are going to open, but when the pressure will be more in the ventricles, these valves are going to close. So this is what? Bicuspid valve. Now we are going to see what is the number 6 one. This blood vessel is the main blood vessel which is carrying the blood away from the heart. So in the previous video we have discussed arteries are the blood vessels which are going to leave the heart. So this main artery is known as what? Aorta. Aorta is the main artery or blood vessel which is going to leave the heart. So this valve, since it is present in the aorta, so it is also known as aortic valve or semi-lunar valve. Semi-lunar why? Because its structure is what, like loon shape, like you know, half Chandrama, Adha Chandrama means Ardh Chandraka. So that's why it is also known as what, semi-lunar valve, and it is present in the aorta. So this is also known as what, aortic valve. Now next, number 7. 7 is what, again in between the atrium and ventricle, but here you are observing 3 structures, 3 cusps are there. So it is known as what, tricuspid valve. Here in between the left atrium and left ventricle, the valve was called what, bicuspid valve, but here in the right atrium and right ventricle, the valve which is present, that is known as what, tricuspid valve, because here 3 cusps are there, 1, 2 and 1 will be from in front, and all of them will again open downside. When the pressure will be more in the atrium, then they will be open and they will allow the blood to flow in only one direction from atrium to ventricle. But when the ventricle will contract and the pressure will be more, these valves are going to close, and thus they prevent the backflow of blood from ventricle to the atrium. Now the last one, that is what, number 8. Again, you know, the blood vessel which is going to leave the heart, they are known as arteries, and this artery is going where, into the lungs. So this artery is termed as what, pulmonary artery. So the valve that is present in the aorta, that is known as aortic valve. So in the same way, the valve that is present in pulmonary artery, that will be known as what, pulmonary valve, or again it will be termed as semi-lunar valve. So now, after the 4 chambers of heart, now we discussed what are the 4 valves in the heart. In between the left atrium and left ventricle, the valve is present, that is known as bicuspid valve. Here between the aorta, the valve is present, that is known as semi-lunar valve. Pulmonary artery contains again a valve that is known as what, semi-lunar valve, and here in between the right atrium and right ventricle, 3 cusp-shaped valves are present that are known as tricuspid valve. All the valves are having the same function, that they prevent the backflow of blood, and also they allow the passage of blood only in one direction. So this was all about the valves. Now we will discuss what are the blood vessels which are entering in the heart and leaving out from the heart. So now we will see what are the blood vessels which are going to enter inside the heart and what are the blood vessels which are leaving the heart. So basically, if 4 chambers are present, so it means what, the 4 blood vessels will be present in each of the chamber. So here we will provide the number after 8. Now this will be what, number 9, then 10, this will be 11 and 12. So what are these blood vessels? 9. Since this atrium is receiving oxygenated blood, and you know the oxygenation of blood can be done where, inside the lungs. So it means this is the blood vessel which is carrying the blood from lungs and entering inside the heart. So the blood vessel that is carrying blood from lungs, that is known as what, pulmonary Pulmonary means what? Denoting the lungs, and you know the vessels that are coming towards the heart, they are known as what? Veins. So this is what pulmonary vein. Actually there are 4 in number, 2 from each lungs, because they are coming from the lungs, so they are known as what? Pulmonary vein. Now number 10 you are observing, it is the blood vessel which is leaving from the heart, because ventricles pump the blood throughout the body. So if it is going away from the heart, it means what? It is clearly indicating that this will be what? Artery, and it is the main artery, so it is known as what? Aorta. So aorta is the main artery which is carrying blood away from the heart, and it originates from the left ventricle. Now number 11, since this is what? Right side of the heart, and it is absorbing, receiving the deoxygenated blood. So the deoxygenated blood will be carried from upper part of the body and from the lower part of the body. So this main vein which is going towards the heart, it means what? It is a vein, and it is known as what? Vena cava. We will discuss what do we mean by aorta and vena cava and veins and arteries here, but first let the names must be clear for each and every blood vessel. So it is what? The main vein which is going towards the heart and providing the impure blood or deoxygenated blood into the right atrium. So from the upper side, vena cava means it is coming from the upside. So the upper side, the blood vessel which is going to pour the blood into the third chamber, that is known as what? Superior. And from the lower side, the blood vessel which is taking the blood and donating it or sending it into the right atrium, that is known as what? Inferior. So the function of superior vena cava is to take the blood from the upper part of the body and send it to the right atrium, and the function of inferior vena cava is what? To take the blood from the lower part of the body and provide it into the right atrium. Finally the last one is what? Number 12, that is what? This blood vessel, again it is going away from the heart, and this is going what? To the lung. So one to the right lung and one to the left lung. So this artery will be termed as what? Pulmonary artery. So these are 4 blood vessels which are entering in the heart and leaving away from the heart. So all of their functions are here. Arteries are the blood vessels which are going away from the heart, and veins are the blood vessels which are going towards the heart. So this blood vessel is what? Coming from the lungs, so it is known as what? Pulmonary vein. This is what? The main blood vessel which is going away from the heart, so it is known as what? Aorta. This main blood vessel is what? Carrying impure blood or deoxygenated blood, so this blood vessel is known as what? Vena cava. If it is coming from the upper part of the body, that will be termed as superior vena cava, and if it is coming from the lower parts of the body, it will be termed as inferior vena cava. And finally this one is the last one, the blood vessel which is leaving the heart and going towards the lungs for purification or oxygenation of blood, and this will be termed as what? Pulmonary artery. So before we are going to wind up the blood vessels, we must discuss few more things about them. In the previous video we have discussed that blood vessels are of 3 types: arteries, veins and capillaries. But these arteries and veins are further divided into few groups on the basis of their diameter. You can see here the main artery which is going to leave the left ventricle. how broad it is, and this the main vein which is going to pour the blood into right atrium, how broad it is. So if suppose this broad blood vessel is what? Aorta, which is leaving the heart, then after leaving the heart, immediately it is going to divide into thin tubules which are known as arteries. So suppose the diameter is going to again become less, and these thin tubules are known as what? Artery. These arteries are going to again further divide into thin tubules which are known as arterioles. So this is what the single one. It will not be like this, but I am showing you only one example that artery is going to further divide into thin tubules, that is known as arteriole, and these arterioles are again going to divide into many segments which are known as what? Capillaries. So now these capillaries are going to turn into thin blood vessel. These are what? Like here arteriole. Now arteries are going to connect with the capillaries with the veins. So this will be what? Venule. These venules are going to again become broad, and these broad blood vessels are known as what? Veins. And finally these veins are going to collect into the much broader blood vessel that is known as what? Vena cava. So this is what? Vena cava, and it is going to provide deoxygenated blood to the heart, and from the heart oxygenated blood is going from the aorta. So these are all again the blood vessels on the basis of the diameter. So arteries are what? Aorta, the main, the broader one, then arteries, then arterioles, and finally this is what? The smallest or the thinnest tubules known as what? Capillaries. So in the board exams, frequently the question is asked that why the arteries are having thick wall in comparison to the veins. Means the veins are having thin wall, whereas arteries are having thick wall. So from the figure itself you can get an idea that arteries are going to evolve or originate from the ventricles, and since the ventricles are having what? Much thicker wall, so the pressure will be more, and to bear this pressure arteries are having what? Thick muscular wall. But veins, these are taking the blood from the body parts and there no pumping organ is there, means the pressure will be what? Less, and that's why veins are having what? Thin walls. One more question is asked in the exams very frequently, that why veins are having valves. Means valves will be present in veins, but valves are absent in arteries. So again you can get an idea that here in the arteries already in the heart valves are present, so no need for the further valves after the arteries are going to leave the heart, because already the valves are present at the beginning. So arteries do not contain or do not possess valves in between them, but these veins, since they are coming from the body parts and the pressure is very low, so they possess valves so that the blood cannot flow back to the other body organs from where they are receiving the blood. So the two questions which are frequently asked in the exams from the arteries and veins: why the arteries are having thicker wall in comparison to the veins, and the next one is what? Why the veins contain valves, whereas the valves are absent in arteries. And apart from these two questions, you must again learn what are the differences between arteries and veins. So this was all about the anatomy of the human heart, what are the four chambers and what are the valves and blood vessels. So my dear students, that was all from the anatomy of heart. Now it's taking too much time for the anatomy and physiology both in the same video. So I am going to wind up all these things here, and in the next video we will see the physiology of heart, means what is the heartbeat and what are the heart sounds, and what are the pathway of blood or passage of blood through the heart, and what do we mean by systemic and pulmonary circulation, and what is the benefits of double circulation, or why we call it double circulation in the mammals or human beings. So we have to discuss a lot about this physiology. So we will continue in the next video, next part. So till then we are going to meet in the next video. Take care of yourself and be safe.